Hey guys, this is Chris Edwards for iPokerVIP.net, and these are a few of my biggest hands from 2011, or the second half of 2011 anyway, after I joined PokerStars. So what this video is going to do is, it's in review from Poker Tracker 3. I'll be going through around I think 8 or 9 hands, all against different opponents, and they're pretty much just massive pots, and I'll be explaining my range and his range and my thought process through each and every hand in full depth, in quite deep. Okay, so let's get into it. This is the first hand. It's against Dave Bosch. He's a NL50 reg. I think he's one of the biggest winners on stars at NL50. When you look at the Ultimate Grinders list, he's always, somewhere in the top 10. And I think we were playing 2 or 3 tables at the time. This was a few months ago now, but yeah. Okay, so I've got Ace 8 suited, and I'm obviously, because he's a reg, I'm mixing up my 3-betting range, so I 3-bet here, and he 4-bets me, because I know he's a good player, and we're pretty deep here. As you can see, we're over 200 big blinds deep, so I decide to call this. I'm not sure if it's probably not the best play, but I still think it can be profitable, knowing that he 4-bets a lot of weaker aces regularly, because he knows that 4-betting those hands are profitable because of the ace blocker. So I call out of position, and the flop comes King 8-3 with the flush draw. This is as dry a board as you'll get, except for the flush draw. So that's a pretty good flop for my hand at the moment. So I'm obviously going to check it to him, check to the razor, and he continuation bets, which I'd expect pretty much all of his range to do here, even if it is ace king or pocket kings or pocket aces, or even I'd say he'd probably see bet queens, jacks and tens for value here as well, because he's a good player, and then go for pot control on the turn. But in saying that, my ace 8 here is ahead of his range. So I go ahead and call. Not too much, pretty standard so far there. Here the turn brings a lot of draws to his range. But no draws hit as yet. But that there can bring a lot of draws. He can 4-bet with a hand like 9-10. I doubt he'd 4-bet with a hand like Queen 10, but he could. A hand like ace queen could barrel this turn. Definitely like ace queen of spades, or like ace 2 of spades, ace 3 of spades. Could definitely be barreling this turn, which he does end up doing. And now that he barrels this turn, I think if he had ace king, he'd probably be going for a bit of pot control. He might be doing this with aces. He'd definitely be doing this with pocket kings. I doubt he'd 4-bet pocket 3s pre-flop. He obviously can have pocket jacks. So right now I think his range is weighted towards, there's a fair bit of air in his range, and there's a lot of draws in his range, and just a small bit of value in his range. Probably aces, kings, jacks, and that's probably it. I doubt he'd 4-bet king queen this deep as well, or king jack. So I call, and the river is the perfect river for me. That means he can't have pocket jacks now, and what my range looks like at the moment, probably something like pocket 9s, maybe something pretty drawy as well, but I doubt I probably wouldn't be calling the turn out of position chasing draws. So he probably knows that I've got like pocket 9s type hand right now, maybe pocket 10s. That's probably what he's thinking. And then again, I can be slow playing as well, but like pocket 8s or something. So, or just have a hand like king queen. I think my hand does look like king queen as well, or even king jack. So now, if he had, he goes ahead and ships all in on the river. This is something he definitely wouldn't be doing with ace king, just a pair of kings alone. He'd definitely be doing it with pocket jacks, quads. He'd definitely be doing it with a full house, with pocket kings there. So that is pretty much his range, in my opinion. He probably would be doing this with aces, not all the time, but I'd say he'd be doing it most of the time. So I think his range here is pretty much a ton of misdraws. Excuse me, a ton of misdraws, like ace queen suited, like I went through on the turn. Complete air, and just a small amount of value, like pocket kings, pocket aces, pocket jacks, pretty much. So I think we can look him up here, which we do, and he shows the 6 high, so it was good. And yeah, we'll be moving on to the next hand straight away. Make sure you guys go through that one pretty quickly, in depth, sorry, and make sure you understand what's going on and all of that. This here is just a cool hand. This guy was tilting like a monkey because I'd taken, I think, about 10 buy-ins off of him, and I don't know what happened, but something on PokerStars, there was an error or something, and it allowed him to buy back into 300. As you can see there, he started exactly with 300. I don't know if they had a table that was like unlimited buy-in or something that I was on that I wasn't aware of or something, but he just lost a stack the hand before, his 10th stack, and he was tilting so bad, writing everything in the chat, and he was a fish. I don't know how he even had $600 to spend on here. And I was 4-tabling at the time, and I didn't even realise he'd rebought to 300 because I didn't think it was possible. I still to this day don't know how it happened, but yeah, I just flat out of position, pretty standard. King 9, the dog as I like to call it, K9, and he c-bets standard, and because he's tilting like crazy here, and I think we're only 100 big blinds deep when really we're 600 big blinds deep. I'm pretty happy to get this in, and he goes ahead and 3 bets the flop, and this is where, like I said, I was 4-tabling, and I press all in, thinking it's just a $50 type thing. He's only got 50 behind, but really he's got 300 behind, and he calls it, and he actually has Jack 10, terrible call by himself, and the King 9 holds up, and I didn't even realise that I'd won a $300 pot until about 20 minutes later, like after he quit. And no, it wouldn't have been 20 minutes, about 5 minutes later, and yeah, I checked my bankroll and I was like, what happened there? And yeah, a bit lucky for myself, but those things can happen if you can tilt people. Next hand here. Sometimes the HUD works on these replayers and sometimes it doesn't, so I think it's if you've got a certain amount of hands on a player, but I'm not too sure. This guy's pretty fishy, and he's a little bit tilted at the moment. Because he tripled up on me, I think, and had around like a lot of money, about 1,200 or something, and he'd recently lost about 500, so he's tilting a little bit, and this hand's pretty cool, pretty interesting. I'm not sure if I played it optimally. I think I did, but obviously no one's ever 100% sure if it's the optimal line, but I'm pretty sure this one was optimal. He raises to 16 pre-flop, which, like I've told you guys before, is a pretty good sign that he's tilting if they raise to 4x or higher. And I flop top pair on a pretty really draw heavy board. There's a flush out there already, 10 jack type hands, 7-6 type hands. So it's a pretty gross flop to flop top pair. And he goes ahead and overbets. This is, I think it's the first or second time he's done it all match. And what do I make of it? I think he never has a flush here. I don't think he ever has a set here either. I think he can have a hand like 9-8 sometimes, but even then, I don't know if he'd do that. He can have a hand like I think the most part of his range is hands like 10 jack with the jack of spades, or 10 jack with the 10 of spades, or 6-7 with the 7 of spades, or something like that, or even like 9 king 9 with the king of spades, 8 king with the king of spades. Just one spade type hands, and like usually a higher spade, like like I was saying, king 9 with the king of spades, or queen 9 with the queen of spades. I don't think he ever has a set. Or he sometimes might have two pair, but yeah, I think for what it's worth, I think his range is predominantly what I just said before, like maybe a made hand, but drawing as well to a pretty strong flush, or even a straight. So I go ahead and call here, and the turn is a great one. It's a blank, and he goes ahead and overbets again. So now I can be pretty certain he doesn't have the nuts or anything close to it. He's just trying to work me off the pot. I think it's pretty clear that I have a decent ace here, like maybe ace 10 or something like that, and he's just trying to work me off the pot here. So I think my hand's good here almost always, and because I know he's tilting, and he'll call anything, any raise that I make, I think shoving here is the most optimal play, because even if he has like king 9 of spades, with the king of spades, sorry, he'll definitely be calling, even though he doesn't have the odds. But when people are tilted, they tend to chase draws a lot when they don't have the right odds to do so. So you want to give them the bad odds and let them call when the money's not good. So yeah, I'll go ahead and ship, and he does call, and he shows over king 4 with the king of spades. So I guess my read on him was pretty much spot on. I thought he might have a pair as well on the flop, but it was his range was his holding was even weaker than I thought. But in saying that, I think our assessment of his range was pretty spot on there, and yeah, I think we played the hand pretty well. Okay, so to the next hand, ace 7 of hearts against Stacey 23. Stacey 23 was, I believe she, or if it is a she, was just a fish, but sort of knew when to attack boards. Sort of knew like a little bit about poker. You could tell like if a board was something like 2-2-4, she'd, or he or she would attack it because they know it's hard to hit and stuff like that. But overall, pretty fishy. And yeah, so we'll go ahead and get with the hand. Here, I see bet the ace 7 for value. That is, I think I can get, because she is a fish. Can get a lot of floats and just a lot of weird stuff here, and it's also to balance my range. But that's not much of a necessity against a fish, because they don't think like that. And she check raises to $6, and here I'm not going anywhere with the ace high, because her range here is just so heavily a flush draw and air that I think I'm ahead here a huge amount of the time, because it's pretty much she'd 3-bet ace jack, probably 3-bet king jack because she's a bit fishy, and maybe even 3-bet queen jack, but probably not. So her range here is pretty much jack 10, some combos of queen jack, some combos of full combos of jack 9, and maybe like some jack X suited, like down to jack 6 type thing. And obviously pocket 3s is part of her range, and just so many flush draws. So I think we're ahead here a massive amount of the time. And the turn is the best card in the deck for us. It makes her having a jack a lot less likely, and if she had pocket 3s now, her full house is counterfeited into just any 3 chops with it. So, and any pocket aces, any pocket pair except pocket 2s is beating her now if she had pocket threes. And she goes ahead and bets now, so all she's repping now is a jack, one card in the deck, and that's just such a small value range that I think our ace high here is good a massive amount of the time. And the 10 the 10 of hearts is a brick on the river. Obviously she can have a hand like 10-9 of diamonds or something like that, but still, when she ships here, I think we're almost always good, except for obviously a jack. And I should mention, I'll go back to the turn. Her bet sizing on the turn, you can see down here it says Stacey bets. There it was. Yeah, Stacey bets $8 into a $15 pot. That's a pretty small bet. I'm not sure if she knew about bet sizing, but still, that's a pretty weird size to be betting with a jack. She'd probably want to get stacks in by the river, so I'd say she might bet around 12 or something. And fish tend to get excited when this happens, and even if they have quads, a lot of fish tend to check. So the bet sizing there is a small read, but I definitely wouldn't be going off of it anyway. And then she overbet shoves into the river, so I'm not going anywhere with ace high anyway. And she does show the flush draw, which, like I said, is just a huge part of her range there. And we'll move on to the next one. Jokitos, however it's pronounced. I've played 1,000 hands with him, or probably more. I think he's an NL50 reg, but he does take some really weird lines at times. He does some really fishy stuff, but then other times you think like he's got the potential to play a lot higher. So I don't really know what to make of him. I remember I took a lot of buy-ins off of him, and I'm not sure at this point if he was tilted or not, but he does know what he's doing, but sometimes I think maybe he gets a bit of fancy play syndrome. If you don't know what that is, he sort of thinks maybe 2 levels too deep or something, and starts just, leveling himself type thing. But anyway, we'll get into the hand. He raises to $1.50 standard, and I 3-bet him with the 4-jack suited, which is fine. Balancing your range against the reg, always good. And as you can see there, I've got $283 on a 50 NL table, so he probably is tilting at this point, because that means I'm up about 5 buy-ins off of him, so he probably is tilting a little bit, and that probably leaned my decisions in this hand towards looking him up. But I'll go ahead and c-bet for value. It's a pretty draw heavy board, can get calls from things like ace-5, worse 4s like 4-5 suited, ace-3, even ace-highs can call, pocket 3s, and a lot of clubs can call as well. So I'm doing this for value as well as balancing my c-betting range in 3-bet pots. And he makes a really small raise here, so he's not really repping much except draws. Obviously, I think I was 3-betting a fair bit at this point, probably around 20%. I'd say he would probably 4-bet 10s pre-flop, not 100% of the time, but probably most of the time. So here he's pretty much repping pocket 4s, pocket 2s, and some combos of pocket 10s. And other than that, just complete air or draws like ace-5, ace-3, clubs, and then ace-3 of clubs. So I think we're ahead of his range here most of the time. So I go ahead and call, and the turn is a blank. That's as much of a blank as we could ask for. So I check it to him. That doesn't hit any of his range because, like I said, excuse me, his range, I'd be more scared of a card like a 3 or a 5 or a 6, because he can have things like 5, 6 in his hand, or like I said before, ace 3 and stuff. The like a 7 or an 8 or a 9 is pretty much the biggest blank as it can get. Apart from like a no, even yeah, those three cards are probably the biggest blanks because you see fish doing this with things like king queen sometimes and stuff like that, just two overcards. So this 9 is a massive blank, and he goes ahead and pots it, which tells me from my experience when people do this on the turn, they've usually got they usually have draws that they think has a lot of equity, and if they bet bigger, they think that their fold equity is larger. They think that there's more of a chance that you'll fold. So when he does this, I think he never really has a set because he'd want to sort of invite a call. He never really has two pair. I think sometimes he might have ace 10, but even then, I don't think he'd play it like this because I can obviously have overpairs. So yeah, I just think his range is just so draw heavy that it's massively plus EV to go ahead and ship this all in. And we're not just calling because like I said, his range is so draw heavy that he'll be calling off his stack here because he's got the right odds to call from from pretty much any draw here. So I'll go ahead and ship, and he shows the Queen Jack of Hearts, which is probably, I'd say, somewhere up the top of his range. That's a monster draw, and I'll go back to the turn so you can see the percentage. Yeah, he's I'll show it. He's 41% there going to the river, so that's the top of his range, and I'm still a favourite against pretty much the top of his range here. So this ship is pretty much massively profitable. So I'm pretty happy with the way that hand panned out, even though we ran into the top of his range, like I just said. Here, this Potuza is, I think he's a reg, but I'm not too sure. He played pretty well. I'm not sure what he was doing on the short tables. We were playing 400 NL short tables. That's why I haven't bought into full, because the maximum buy-in is $200. And he'd been running me over a fair bit. He knew when to attack. He was a pretty good player all around, pretty much. So he just, it's like he'd probably played about 200,000 hands or something of heads up. That's just a guess, but that's the level he was sort of at anyway. He was a pretty tough player. So here I raised the 10 deuce suited up to 12, and he 3-bets. His 3-bet is so small. Aside from that, I might have been tilting a little bit. I'm not too sure. This was a couple months ago, but because his 3-bet's so small, I like to play a lot of pots in position. I feel as though I have an edge against most opponents in position with almost any two. I don't know if I'd recommend doing this though. Actually, I'd say don't do it. Like I said, I might have been a little bit tilted, but because his 3-bet's so small, when people are 3-betting under 3x your raise, I tend to call probably too light at times. But yeah, that's my reasoning for calling pre-flop. And he goes ahead and c-bets. I expect this flop not to hit his range very much. Obviously he can have overpairs, but I think he'll be giving up once I call this this bet here. I think he has like a lot of overpairs in his range. Obviously ace king, ace queen, ace jack, ace 10, king queen type hands that I have a massive amount of equity to. And even if he does have aces or something, I feel as though I could get him off the pot if the right cards fell on the turn or river. Like obviously a 7 or a 2, if they fell on the river, I think I could get him off the pot. So I call here with equity and as a float as well, with the intention of trying to get him off this pot. There are a few sixes in my range. When this 6 comes on the turn, it's definitely not a blank. I can have things like ace 6 suited, 6-5 suited, 6-7 suited, 6-8 suited. So it's not a blank, but still when I call this flop, I think in his mind I have a lot of floats in my range, which I am doing, and if I bet this 6, I'd expect to get looked up really, really light, because trips is just such a small part of my range at this point. So I'll go ahead and check it back. I think it looks a lot more credible this way, like I can rep a 4 a lot more, or like a pocket 7s type hand, pocket 8s, pocket 7s, pocket 8s, ace 4, ace 3, 4, 5 suited, things like that. I can just rep a lot more if I check this back. And now that the 5 comes on the river, I expect him to shut down here with obviously ace king and even aces and things like that. But because my range looks so floaty here, and obviously I have a fair few 5s in my range looking for that, I've got that open-ended straight draw. I want to confuse him as much as I can and make my hand look as bluffy as I can here. I think he'd fold if I just bet, the standard, what would you bet here, something like $85 into 140. I think he'd fold here. He'd just know that I'm value betting, like he knows that his range looks like aces, kings, queens, jacks, or ace king, and he'd just fold because he knows I can have a straight, and he knows I can be value betting even like a 5 here. He knows that I'm good enough to do that. So I want to make my range just look like it was a complete float, and when I ship like this, overbet, in his mind, I'm sort of getting on his level of thinking. He'll be thinking to himself, he wouldn't do this with a 2 because he might be scared that I have a 7, and I don't think he'd even, this is what he's thinking by the way, I don't think he'd even do that with a 7 because there's a full house out there, but obviously he doesn't know that I'm capable of doing this with a 2, and that's my reasoning behind doing this, to make it look a lot more bluffy. So to him it sort of looks like either a full house or nothing. And because maybe I did look a little bit tilted at this point, he does look me up with ace high, and I just thought that's a really good hand. It just shows what a bit of creativity can do against the reg. Just trying to get inside his mind and thinking on his level, and then adjusting to make it the most profitable. I don't agree with his call here, because even my floats like pretty much hit that river. Like I pretty much have a pair of 5s there almost always, or something like that, or turning like a pair of 3s into a bluff or something like that. So the only thing he really beats there is like 10 jack, 10 queen, which is a little bit of my range I suppose, but I don't think his call there is profitable, especially because I gave him really bad odds to call. But like I said, I made it look really bluffy and it worked a treat. Here it's against an opponent, Aquadugs. I can't remember too much about his play. I think he was pretty decent, but we'll go ahead and get straight into the hand. He 4-bets me here, and similar to the first hand, because we're really deep here, well not really deep, but about 95 big blinds deep here, 190 big blinds, 165 big blinds deep or something like that. I think we're deep enough to make this a call, especially because players like this, he was a reg, I'm remembering what happens in this hand now, and he had been 4-betting a fair bit, and because I know that regs know to 4-bet weak aces, that plays a massive part in this hand. So we'll just see how it pans out anyway. So I think my ace 9 suited here, because he's 4-betting with a polarized range pre-flop, to weak aces and complete air and pocket jacks or pocket queens plus, or ace king. Because we're this deep, usually 50 NL regs like this, they're not good enough to 4-bet. Well, I don't know about saying not good enough, but it's probably not profitable to 4-bet a hand like ace queen this deep, or a hand like pocket 10s this deep, because you can just get into so many gross spots. So I think his range here is pretty polarized pre-flop, so I go ahead and call, and I think I'm ahead of his range for the most part. And he c-bets 8 into $26. Here, like I said before, I think his range is really polarized, and once he bets so small, I've got the backdoor flush draw, backdoor straight draw, and obviously the ace. And I think sometimes even a 9 can be good here when it hits, and obviously the ace high here is good a lot of the time. So I go ahead and call, and the turn is an 8, and I check, and he checks. So once he checks back this turn here, I think his range is like pocket jacks, pocket queens, obviously something like maybe 4-5 type suited type hand, 5-6. But I think the massive amount of his range are things like ace-4 and ace-5 suited, or probably actually not suited, because people tend to just peel pre-flop and try to see a flop when their aces are suited. But when they're small offsuit aces, these regs that have watched all the videos know that the ace blocker's a good hand to 4-bet. So I think those weak aces are just a massive part of his range at the moment. So I go ahead and check the river, trying to get the showdown, and hopefully my ace high is good. And he shoves all in here, and this is really weird, and I pretty much almost timed out on this hand. I think I had like 3 seconds left, and my thoughts were this: he's either slow played pocket kings for no apparent reason, which is just, actually it's not plausible, because he's good enough to know to get stacks in by the river without having to do an over bet like this. So he probably would have bet like maybe even 8 on the flop like he did, but then I know for a fact he'd bet small on the turn as well, so he could get stacks in by the river. So what do I think he might have here? Obviously I thought long and hard about this, and I just think ace-4 and ace-5 were just a massive part of his range. And the other thing in his range is pocket queens, but that's, I think, like, to be honest, I think that's all he has for value here, pocket queens. That's the only hand I can see him playing like that. So he just has a really wacky line, and I think he needs to be looked up. And I wasn't just saying I thought he had ace-5 or ace-4 because I obviously know what he had now, but those are my honest thought processes in the hand. And I was pretty proud when he flipped over like pretty much the exact hand I put him on, even to the offsuit part. But yeah, I'm pretty happy that it worked out there. So like I said, his range was just so polarized to pocket queens or nothing there. So yeah, I think looking him up there is profitable, and it looks cool anyway. And we're gonna finish with just a fish hand. This was like pretty much my first session on game. You can see my my username there has changed from FloppyNuts09 to Floppy09, and after I played this hand, I never want to leave on game again. Yeah, so I raised to 12 pre-flop. This guy was a massive fish. He raised to 36, and I'm definitely not folding Queen Jack to a fish pre-flop, especially in position. So I go ahead and call, and he shoves for $432 into $72. And now he never has a 10 here, never has Ace Jack, never has King Jack. The things he has here is like Ace King a lot, King Queen a lot, 9-8 a lot, and obviously diamonds, and a lot of gutters like, you know, King 9 type hands. So we're way ahead of his range, and I pretty much snap called this. And he turned over 4-3 offsuit, and obviously I was pretty stoked to collect a $936 pot from a complete fish. Yeah, so good way to finish it. Just a happy little hand there. That's the end of this review session. Next video, I'll probably be reviewing a session against, I think, pretty much the best NL50 player on PokerStars. Well, some of my friends have told me, and hopefully we'll get into a few tricky spots, and you guys can learn a thing or two from battling regs. If you have any questions or anything you'd like to see, I keep saying it, just make sure you guys tell me. I'd definitely be happy to do something that you guys wanted to see, and it'd just be great to get some good feedback. Okay, so this has been Chris Edwards for iPokerVIP.net, and I'll see you guys next time.